Hi and welcome. So today I want to share with you how we use emotional eating to control our emotions. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. And so I wanted to talk about this because I think it's so important that we understand what we're using our emotional eating for. And I think when I speak to a lot of women, they have this idea that whenever they get stressed or they have discomfort, they emotionally eat. And I don't think they quite understand that they're actually using their emotional eating to control their emotions. So it is soothing them. It's giving them like a disconnect from the emotions temporarily, but it's a control mechanism. So emotional eating is when we use food to soothe ourselves from any discomfort, uncomfortable emotions, any stress that comes up in our life. And what I've seen with this pattern is it comes from childhood because we didn't know how to be with our emotions. We weren't modeled that. We didn't have parents or caregivers that could help us regulate our nervous system and move through this discomfort. And so we had to sort of deal with it in our own way. And eventually this is the pattern that emerges. It's not that you're sitting around at 5 years old eating bags of chips, although that could be for some people, but it's a pattern that develops over time. And so what I want to say is that this is a way we control our emotions. We don't want to feel that discomfort. And why would we want to control our emotions? Because we don't feel accepted for them and we don't accept our emotions. We don't know how to accept them. We were sort of modeled that something was wrong with us if we had these big emotions. And so it's important to sort of frame it as we're trying to control our emotions. And why do we want to control our emotions? Well, we believe something's wrong with us for having emotions. We feel something's wrong with us for feeling these emotions. We feel something's wrong with emotions. And honestly, if we look around in our society, we're sort of told we need to be composed. We need to not make any waves, not have big emotions. We want to be calm. And while we want to be in a calm state because that means our nervous system is in a calm state. It's in rest and digest. We're more open. When we start controlling our emotions, we actually put ourselves into a fight or flight mode because we're holding in those emotions. We're not allowing them to be. So our nervous system is activated and agitated and it gets triggered more easily. So when we're using our food to sort of control our emotions, we're actually just continuing that rejection of our emotions. We are trying to control them. And in a way, we're rejecting a part of ourselves. So our emotions are information. And when we're very young, we have information. If something happens to us and we feel hurt, it's information in that emotion. If something happens to us and we feel sad, there's information in that. If something happens and we feel sort of isolated and rejected, there's information in that. What we needed was to have parents or caregivers help us move through those emotions, to accept them, to tell us they were okay, and to help us move through the physical sensations of the emotions and the messages in the emotions, and to help us make sense of our world. Most of us, and if you're here, did not receive that. And, our society, like I said, tells us we should be more put together and calm, but we're actually doing the opposite when we say that to ourselves and we don't know what emotions mean. And so our emotions, when they're not allowed to move through us, they're unresolved. So whatever happens, and it could be for one person, a certain event can create this feeling of unresolved in them versus another person can move through them. And it just depends on their sensitivity, their parents, and how they move through it. And so if you're left feeling with this sense of something is unresolved in me, that emotion is unresolved in your body and it is a trauma. And over time, it just gets, as we push it down, it just goes deeper and deeper and we don't create that resolution. And so we need to control. Whenever that gets triggered, we want to control it. And food is the way we control it, because when we eat food to soothe ourselves, we numb that feeling. We push it down. We suppress it. But of course, as we know as emotional eaters, over time, we become out of control with food and our body, because the thing that we're using to control our emotions is now an issue. And so we've now created this pattern where we are trying to control our emotions, food, and our body, and we're out of control in general. So we haven't learned the importance of this. And the more we try to control and stuff and restrict, around food and our body and our emotions, the bigger and bigger this gets, the more out of control we feel. And so we need to turn towards ourselves. We need to start understanding ourselves and move away from trying to control to trying to understand and to really see where this pattern comes from. And so this pattern usually develops in childhood. And why would we want to control our emotions? Well, they were most likely rejected by our environment, by our society, by our parents or caregivers. When I was young, I remember being told over and over again that I was really sensitive and that I cried very easily. And so I thought something was wrong with me. So I held in all of my emotions and I had this shield. I was really serious. And you can see that in kids when they're holding something in, they're very tight in their body and they're not being themselves. They have this mask on, they have this shield on, and it's how they think they can protect themselves. And so they're almost with their body tensing up to protect themselves, because they don't want to be rejected by their parents or caregivers. Rejection means that they're not going to survive. And that's what's going on. Our body is like, oh no, I'm rejected. I need to be accepted. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be accepted. And so we tense up, and then that emotion, it's unresolved. It's a trauma. It lives in the body. And now we have this shield of, I don't feel anything, but I really do. And when it gets triggered, I go towards food to sort of numb out and feel kind of okay. Because it's only so much this part of us can hold because those emotions are being triggered. And so what I want to shift for you is that emotions are important. And the more we can accept our emotions and move through them, the less out of control we're going to feel with them. But we need to do this in a specific way. We need to start creating safety and understanding around our emotions to allow them to be, to not judge them. And so when we have these deeper wounds and these deeper limiting beliefs around our emotions, this is why I love the somatic meditations that I use with clients inside of the Emotional Eating Evolution program to really get into the body, because that's where we're holding on to these unresolved emotions. We can talk about them and we can go back to that event and talk about this happened to me and this is what happened and X and Y and Z, but it's in our mind. Our emotions, they live in our body, they're sensations. We need to access them there and in the body and somatically work with them and integrate them. And then that's how we shift our perspective of them. And that's how we integrate them. And that's how we start gaining more acceptance of our emotions. We start allowing them. We start seeing nothing's wrong with them, because we would have had this deeper ingrained belief that something's wrong with us for having emotions, for sensitivities, and we need to fix ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with you. The more you accept these emotions and move through them, the more connected you're going to feel. Because when we push them away and we reject them, we're just doing what our parents and caregivers did to us. And we keep perpetuating that something's wrong with us. And we do it again and again in our bodies. And we develop coping patterns and coping strategies like emotional eating. And we become further and further away from ourselves, because we need those emotions to give us information about our life. And when we're able to move through them, they're going to tell us something, just as when we're little, we don't like this, we like this, this is the direction we should be moving in. Our emotions are guiding us towards what we want. And when we decide that they're not important and we're just listening to everyone else on the surface, our life is going to go in all of these weird directions. Yes, life is not perfect. We're going to have ups and downs, but the more disconnected we are from our emotions and our guidance, the bigger these wake-up calls are going to be. So what I want to say and what I want you to take away from this video is that emotions are important, and that we need to really move through them to hear their messages and what they're saying to us and start accepting them, because when we control them, we create more of this pattern. We're actually pushing ourselves more into emotional eating. And so if this is resonating for you, what I'd love for you to do is to check out the Emotional Eating Evolution program. So this is my step-by-step methodology that helps women get to the root of their emotional eating, to resolve it so they can finally feel confident in their body and around food. And working with our emotions and getting to that space of allowance and acceptance is a big part of the program, along with nourishing our body and accepting our body. We move through these deeper emotions, we process them and integrate them so we can move forward powerfully, so we're no longer in this pattern. So if that's resonating for you, I'd love for you to check that out. You know, this pattern is about the emotions and not accepting them and allowing them, but it's also so much more multi-layered, because at this point, like I mentioned, we're using other strategies to control not only our emotions, but food and our body. And we need to unpack this in order to get to that true resolution. So if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. And I look forward to sharing more with you. And I hope you have a great